Alright, we're going to do a quick tour of my car and the updates and stuff that I've done to it lately. This camera has a tendency of turning off by itself, so hopefully that doesn't happen. Alright, so I got the glove box back in, which is nice. It's been out for months and months. Alright, it stopped recording, so let's try this again. Glove box is in. It's been out for months. It kind of looked like shit without it in there. I took it out originally, I guess, to fix it because it wouldn't open. And I eventually just got really frustrated and just started prying as hard as I could to open it. And that's why it's a little bit loose right there, but that's all right. Eventually, I broke off the lever and found, I can't see through the camera, this little thing inside. I can slide to the side and I can open it. It kind of takes two hands, but yeah, see that plastic piece right there? I just have to push it to the right. So I can probably maybe I'll make a little handle for that someday. Just like a little piece of wood and just glue it in there just so I can have something to grab. Actually, look at that. I can do it with my, there we go. I need to put my manual and stuff in there now that I have space. And the other reason I took it out was to run my boost gauge. And while it was out, before I put it back in, I took the opportunity to run power line from my battery. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Popping the hood could help. Hood actually got easier to pop. I had this car for a year, and you'd have to pull really hard, and it would catch, like it would almost hurt. It'd like hurt your fingers sometimes if you only had one or two fingers on the hood latch. It was so hard to pull. All right, gem, a beauty. All right, so no batteria in there anymore. I taped up this terminal so that it wouldn't touch anything. So under here, this is one of the battery terminals. Alright, it stopped recording again, but I caught it, see, so I'm not just talking for minutes and minutes and then getting frustrated because I lose the footage. Anyway, yeah, this is one of the battery terminals. This plastic piece was on here, stock. And what I did is I unscrewed this bolt and I added my cable to here and I cut out this piece of plastic so that could snap down. Pretty cool. So that runs into the car right there, along with my boost vacuum line. And you can see I use these little rubber grommets. I guess cars come with extra ones in the firewalls so that you can run more stuff. And the black cable from the battery is actually like amazing. It's just this one here. It's not very long because the battery was right here. I don't know what my camera's doing. But look at this. There were these two bolts that held the battery tray in. And if you take off one bolt, this terminal fits perfectly. You see this piece of metal? I sanded that down and the terminal fits on there perfectly. So it's like it's meant to be. So I put the terminal on there, tightened it down with this bolt, and then this nut has like a floating washer that came on, and this one had one too, but I just took it off. And I put it on backwards because that was the only way it would thread on and still hold the terminal on. So it's pretty. So those go all the way through the car. And got my battery here now. Perfect weight distribution right by the right rear wheel. I wanted to put it in the wheel well. There's not quite enough space. I was thinking about hammering it out because I get much lower center of gravity that way. But I got my old amp out and my old subwoofers, just some cheap Sony Explodes, but you know, whatever, I had them sitting around and figured I might as well wire them up. Some adapters finally came in the mail for, it was only like $8 off of eBay to get adapters because I got this is like a 10-year-old Sony head unit and the stock sound system sounded so bad. Apparently it had like some bass boost thing that you couldn't turn off. I guess I'll take this out even though it's finally working right. It does not want to come out. But anyway, there's like a couple adapters. Let's see. This out. The struggle is real. One-handed filming. There we go. so there's the adapter right there. So that's the stock. These two plugs are stock. That would plug into the back of the stock radio. And these wires come out the back. And I match those up to the aftermarket unit, which just has standard wiring pattern, which is easy to find. And there's one more right here, a third plug that plugs into an adapter. Now this one was tricky because the way this car's stereo works, I found out I had a Symphony 2. Once you take it out, it says on the side, the stock radio says Symphony 2. Sometimes it's hard to know if you have Bose, Symphony 1, or Symphony 2. And so my system was Symphony 2. It is a base model car, and that does is it powers the front speakers, and it runs a relay. There's an amplifier built into this car somewhere in the ceiling, maybe that's how the A6s are, and the rear speakers have their own amplifier. So you can't just hook your aftermarket head unit up to the wires like normal. You have to put a line out signal to the rear speakers and give them an activation for the amp to turn on. So that's what this third adapter I've got. So you can see I've got two wires coming off of the amp remote turn on switch, because one goes to my subwoofer amp and one goes to the rear speakers amp. But that's what this adapter did. This third plug back here had a blue and white. So anyway, and then it was a pain in the fucking ass to figure this all out. And so these two plugs in the back here, that teal, see, I'll have to make a whole video on this, because if anybody else wants to do it, it took me so much research online, like it shouldn't be this difficult to do. But anyway, this adapter, see how there's a green and a purple wire there, and on the other side there's a green, and basically not all of the wires have a wire coming out the other side. So I saw when I plugged this in that basically what this does is it gives you 4 RCA cables, so you can have like 2 sets of speakers, and potentially, but I saw that only one of them actually had wires coming out of the other side. So I knew that only the teal and the purple wires were hot, and so I knew those must be the rear ones, so I plugged those into the rear line out of my stereo, and then I wired up the front speakers like normal. And yeah, I'm happy it's finally working. It sounds way better than the stock system. Because the stock system didn't even have a flat curve, which sucked. It had like this built-in bass boost that you couldn't turn off, and I kind of understand why they did that now, because now hearing it without any equalization, it just like sounds like, it doesn't sound like crap, but it sounds so thoroughly mediocre, just okay. But you know, whatever. Like the other thing was I didn't get any radio reception. I don't know. I only got really strong radio signals, which was like basically I got no radio stations with the stock. For some reason, I don't know why. And so that was one of the biggest reasons to plug this in, to try to fix the radio. And it does get better signal now, but it's still not great. So I think this just has like a stupid like rear windshield, like built-in antenna that sucks or something. So I feel like you would get a better signal just having like a 6-inch antenna just plugged straight into the antenna plug in the back of this. Because I think no matter how small antenna would be better than whatever this car has. Because like if you just have a little crappy radio, you know, like you plug into the wall, like bathroom radio or whatever, like that gets stations no problem, and it doesn't have a giant antenna. So I might just do something like that. The reason this is pulled out is because after I was driving for a while, it got super hot, and so I just have it sitting out a few inches so that it gets like, if you drive for an hour, it's like really hot up in here. I plan on making a wooden faceplate and putting in a computer fan, actually, which would be pretty funny. But so another thing about this stereo is Audi, for some reason, I guess, in this car doesn't have an accessory on wire for the ignition to tell the radio when to come on. It has like some other, I don't know exactly, so I had to hardwire the on and off for the radio. But it's actually kind of nice. One of the reasons it's nice is because when it's off, because like I have the radio off and on here, right? But I've also got what would be turning the key on and off here. So right now the radio's off, but it's getting power as if the key was an accessory. And what that does is it just leaves the clock on. And this car doesn't have, see, the clock's right there, but it's off when the car's off, so you can't tell what time it is. So oh, now it's going to show this, so I guess it's not always there, but it's kind of nice because you have that clock. And the other thing that's nice is, like, a lot of times, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but I'll be listening to the radio or whatever and come to a stop and turn my car off. I kind of want to, like, listen to the end of the song or listen to what they're saying on the radio, but I don't want to keep running my engine. Or, like, sometimes, like, you'll turn your car off and you'll turn the radio back on to, like, hear the end of it, but you miss, like, 4 or 5 words. Now you don't know what they're talking about. You know, that doesn't happen that much, obviously, but I'm just saying worst case scenario. It's nice because you stop, you turn your car off, and it's still going. You can keep listening to it, and you turn it off when you want. So whatever, I don't know. It's kind of cool. I kind of like it. I mean, and that's the sound it makes when you take off the power from it. Like, normally you turn your car off and it makes that sound, but this doesn't have an accessory up. So anyway, yeah, I moved my boost gauge, was hanging off of one of the bolt holes for the glove box. When the glove box was out, I had my boost gauge hanging here because the radio, the stock radio, took up this whole space. So I didn't have a place for it. So now that I got this radio in, I have a place for my boost gauge, which is cool. And I want to get, like, oil pressure, voltage, you know. Air fuel ratio would be nice, but I definitely don't have the money for one of those sensors. So yeah, this actually used to turn my case fan on and off, 120 millimeter case fan that I cut a hole in the side of my high school computer that I made back before you could buy computers that came with fans in the side of them. And this is my illumination for the boost gauge. At nighttime, I just got a stupid phone call and it interrupted my video. I get spam, like, phone calls all day. Anyway, I didn't used to be able to see my boost gauge at night, and because I never had it wired up to power. And so this is power, so you can't really. You can sort of see it in the ring on the outside, bottom right ring. But yeah, now it's cool. So now at nighttime I can flip my switch, see my boost gauge. So yeah. And last but not least, I'll hear how it sounds. I like this lanyard that came with my Yanaka lanyard, Motorsports. Came with my $40 resonator, so everybody can tell that I drive a race car. Try to set up this. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, hopefully the camera stays on. Something was buzzing there. No, normally it doesn't buzz like that. I'm sure it was probably one of the coat hangers I have holding it up. You can't hear that inside the car. And I guess the last feature I can show is my homemade plastic. It looks like total shit, but when you're at speed on the road, this whole thing gets pushed up, like up into the car because of the wind. So the back kind of drags sometimes on, it's better than it looks, believe me. Back just drags on whatever, bumps and stuff, high spots in the road when I'm, like, on the dirt roads. So it gets tattered back there. But to buy a new under tray for this car is like $250. And this is like heavy duty construction grade plastic for covering houses before, like, windows go in and stuff, so it's super tough. And I just have, like, a piece of wood going across from bumper to bumper and a few more pieces of wood going down. I've got them coat hanger wired in, and I've got this piece of wood with a zip tie in on both sides. And I actually hit a really big bump the other day and busted both the zip ties broke, and I made it all the way home before I realized the thing was dragging. But I mean, basically all winter the roads were covered in salt, and this protected the bottom of my engine, the whole bottom engine bay and part of the transmission from all the salt all winter. So it did its job. Didn't cost me anything. I made one for my A6 out of sheet metal, tin sheet metal. I forget what it's called, tin flashing. That worked way better than the plastic. It never broke, it never tore. I never had a problem with it, but I lost my roll of flashing. I think somebody took it and brought it to recycling for money, for scrap metal bastards. Anyway, yeah, that's about it. So I'm gonna try to make a mount for the car so I can take it on a drive sometime. Oh yeah, I just want to show you the no mufflers, of course. No exhaust. Need to lower this big. Get a better view of the exhaust here. Way up there. So the entire exhaust broke and fell off, and way up there at the flex pipe broke too. I clamped up the flex pipe and it doesn't leak now with some scrap metal and exhaust clamps. And look at this shit-tastic job. Sloppy would be proud. I don't know what that metal... Somebody gave me the idea that like back in the... It's common for people to like wrap flat pieces of metal around the muffler to hold it up. So I found some like thin angle iron and hammered it flat. And look at it, slid all the way back. I had one like tooth, like I had it like by thirds. So there's like a band 1/3 down, and like another band another third down. So it was like equally spaced. And now look, they both kind of slid to the back. And then I've got coat hangers running above, like lengthwise, so the whole muffler can sort of slide forward and back like an inch or two if it needs to. And I go like overkill with the exhaust clamps. I almost put on more. I almost put on a fourth one there and 2 for each side, just because I know when you don't weld, I know from experience, exhaust systems take a fucking beating, and if you don't have them on there really solid, if they're not welded on there, they're usually coming off. So I clamped the shit out of it. I coat hangered it up everywhere. It cost me 80 bucks for a muffler and a resonator. I'm really happy with the volume, and it definitely has way better flow because they're both high flow. And it's definitely not too loud, and it's a lot cheaper and lighter than stock system. There's my craptastic. Yeah, I need to fix that. I need to find some tin flashing, and there's a lot of shit I need to do. But anyway, that's my quick update for now. Alright, I've got to show one thing real quick. So my car is parked up there. When my entire exhaust system fell off, I put it in my trunk and put my seats down, and I couldn't close the trunk, and I drove all the way back here with no exhaust system, and I didn't know where to put it because I live in an apartment, a small one-room apartment, so there's literally no space. There's just no space to put a full exhaust system just sitting around in my apartment. So I was like, what the fuck? I didn't want to leave it in a parking lot because, you know, it's a public parking lot. It would look like shit sitting there. It's like a nice town or whatever. So I'd come down here before to the river and noticed some like car wheels and shit. So I figured, you know, there's other car stuff down here. Oh, it's